you look at our story, it's a series of just incredible luck, but like compounding on luck.
This is The Payoff with me, Sylvia Jeffries. Adam Schwab, welcome to The Payoff. Great to have you here.
Great to be here.
Well, I've got a bit of time in Melbourne, so I thought who better to tap into than, Mr. Melbourne
You've got
himself.
a few better. I think Eddie won't be happy with that. But,
no.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie was busy, so.
Eddie is very busy.
He is Eddie everywhere, after all. Adam, we've got so much to talk to you about, but I want to start with your first flashes of entrepreneurial spirit, which obviously emerged in your university days with the humble CD-ROM.
That's good research.
Tell me about that. What were you doing? What were you selling to your fellow students?
Well, actually, it started a little bit before then, although that was kind of one and the same. But me and my best mate, a guy called Jez, who we're still best mates and still business partners, we, in year 12, I won't age myself by saying how long ago this was a long time ago. And back in those days, I think they might still do it to an extent, is you used to do these big assignments through the year. And how you do it is you'd base it on somebody else's who was really smart from the year before or a couple of years before. And there were these guys, I was in the city not too far from here, and there was this guy selling hard copy, they were called cats back then. I remember I bought it was $80 for a big sort of pile of paper. And we bought one, and we all sort of bought one. And it was really helpful to doing the big cat thing. So at the end of the year, Jez and I, we said, why don't we just sell our cats? We did them. And so we had some okay ones. We found some really smart people who did even better ones, and we just paid them $50 or whatever and put them on a CD-ROM. This is really early day. This is cutting edge days for CD-ROMs. So I had to get it burned at some dodgy person, some dodgy guy, exactly like the kind of guy you'd imagine with burning CD-ROMs. And we had to get someone programming some really basic software that you do in 3 seconds now with a AI, with Lovable or something. Anyway, so this took 6 months, and we got it done. We sold these CD-ROMs at a this year 12 exhibition thing, and made $2 or $3 grand selling our assignment. That was our very first proper business thing. And then I did the same thing in law school. There's a cottage industry of people selling law notes, which is just open book exams, and did the same thing. Found another guy, we put it on CD-ROM, and I managed to sell it through the actual law bookseller. So it sounded really official. I thought this is not some dodgy guy. This is an official thing. And I once got the big legal publisher tried to buy it once. I said, I can't sell this. It was too dodgy to sell. But yeah, that was made us $10 grand or something, which back then was a lot.
So it wasn't cheating effectively, right? Because you're just selling the notes, not the exam answers.
So everybody brings notes in. And so because they're open book exams, and you don't know what the exam question is going to be. So it's just kind of how it's done in law. And so there's this big cottage industry of people giving or selling law notes, but we just kind of institutionalized it by putting on a CD-ROM.
Did the uni push back on that?
Eventually they banned it.
Why? And what did you do to get around
that? They banned it because too many people were using it, and they didn't have to go to lectures, and it was it wasn't cheating, it was just kind of taking a shortcut, which now is kind of with LLMs is kind of what happens, but back then it was frowned upon. So Dean said anybody using these notes is expelled or suspended.
Wow.
So I then started selling it through some dodgy phone seller in some other part of the uni, and then we just gave it was too small to bother with. And by then I was working at a law firm, so it was kind of done. But it was our first sort of foray into buying and selling.
Was that the moment where you realised that maybe you weren't going to be a lawyer forever?
I think I always knew that. I think some people who love doing law, and I had a great time as a lawyer because we had a group of 30 or 40 people in your sort of cohort. But there's pretty smart people there, and also law is incredibly boring. So you have to be a certain personality to like that stuff. So I would have probably done banking if I wasn't doing law, but we started a backpacker apartment business, Jez and I. We were 24, and back in those days, it wasn't cool to be an entrepreneur. Now you speak to lots of people, and you've had Zuckerberg and Musk and Spiegel and all these people who made it cool to be an entrepreneur. Back then, entrepreneur is like Christmas Case, Alan Bond, dodgy guys who went bankrupt. So it wasn't a thing that people were proud to say. It's not the kind of, your parents wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer. They didn't want you to be an entrepreneur. It was bad. Now it's different. Now everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. It was risky and just unglamorous. And we did a backpacker apartment business, which is even more literally putting together furniture essentially.
So what did you identify in the market that made you want to start up that business?
It's a good question. So we were 24. I'd done something similar. I was skiing for a few seasons at a place called Whistler in Canada, and accommodation's really tight. So if you're staying for the season there, it's really hard to get somewhere to sleep. So I slept on the floor my first year. And then the third year I was there, I managed to rent an apartment and sublet it to 7 other people, 3 girls from Brisbane and a couple of guys I knew from Melbourne. And I didn't have to pay anything because there was enough people there covering my rent, which worked out pretty well. And that sort of was kind of the germ and the idea. And then we had friends from Scotland over, and they were sort of in this in between. So they couldn't find an apartment. You don't want to stay in a hostel for 3 months. You can't afford a hotel. You can't rent an apartment. So you sort of stay in this middle, and there's this whole underground market of these apartments that just random dudes were letting out. So we just did it. Like
why can't we be the random dudes?
We were the random dudes. Slightly younger. I think the other guys were a bit older and dodgier. And because we were the same age as all the kind of backpackers or flashpackers or where they were, we were friends with them, and we had a couple of apartments and picked the best ones to live with us. So it was really good fun. But it was hard. Every time you set up an apartment, you're setting up the furniture, and then you have like bed bugs, and that's a nightmare. And then you have like one time we were driving down the highway went to Fantastic Furniture, like to buy a cheap couch, and had this trailer. My dad had the trailer, and I didn't think to put a rope on it, and the couch flew out the back on the highway to run, and somehow it didn't get killed. But it was just stuff like that. That was a great metaphor for how incompetent we were. Yeah. But it was a great foray into like just starting a business, like the most important job with any entrepreneur, any founder is be able to sell. Like if you can't sell, like you got no business. So it's all fun and games having the product, but it was that learning how to sell. We were like little mini real estate agents. We'd take people around apartments. And
did you turn that into something viable?
Not really. We turned into a corporate apartments business, and funnily enough, like 50 minutes from where we're sitting here is where our first apartment was, or even less than 50 minutes. It was pretty incredible to sort of ride past and think 20 years ago that was our first one. But yeah, we ended up buying and selling sort of half a dozen apartments. It was really hard this is in 2007, just pre-GFC. It's really getting really hard, a bit like now, really hard to rent apartments. So we ended up buying 6 apartments actually using heaps of leverage, like 95%, like now, 95% leverage. We hate leverage, but we were positively geared. So the rent we were paying was more than covered by the rent we were getting. So it wasn't that risky, but it was a lot of debt. So who knows? So after a couple of years, we just sold them. We sort of printed them up like mini block and sold them, and had $1 million between us. And that was a lot for us. We were like 28 or something. And then started our next business, which was a restaurant booking food ordering business.
My Table?
Yeah, that's very impressive. You knowing that, not the business. The business was terrible. And it became part of Menulog, essentially. So we were running that business alongside our early deals businesses, and Jez was running it, and it was just like a terrible business.
What made it so terrible?
Well, remember you had to be able to sell. We just couldn't get customers to use it. It was a really hard market. You had to build the marketplace. So now like Uber Eats and DoorDash have obviously built that with billions and billions of dollars of capital. We were doing that with like a lot less than $1 million, like $1 million in capital or even less. So
and bootstrapping, you weren't taking.
Yeah, we never raised capital to like 2022 in any of our businesses. So we had it, and we had 700 restaurants with printers, and so sort of signed up, and then we ended up selling it to Gabby and Hezi, who ran Catch of the Day, which was sold to West Farmers later. They had the same thing, and our business was, at the time, we were about to close it down. It was like hemorrhaging money, and Jez was having sleepless nights. It was frankly, and we had another business on the side, deals.com.au, the earlier version of Luxury Escapes, and that was actually going pretty well, but that was being like dragged down by, like in the scene of Titanic, being dragged down by this other business. So we managed to sell it and got 10% of the other business. And we knew they'd do a great job with it because they were smart guys and had lots of money, and eventually sold for like $125 million as part of this Menulog thing. So this most unjustified windfall in the history of Australian business, us getting anything for that business, let alone whatever we got, which was in the like tens of millions, just purely just like shows that luck is more important than anything. Like skill, there was no skill in that. Like we were completely incompetent. But
you can't be entirely incompetent.
No, we were. We were.
Yeah, I love your honesty. Yeah. So where was the catalyst? What was the catalyst then for Luxury Escapes after that?
Yeah, so as we were starting that business, we also started a business called deals.com.au. Actually, it was called Zoopon originally, which is a shocking name. We based on Groupon. So Groupon was the fastest business to hit $1 billion in valuation and turnover in the States in about 2009. And Jez went to the States and saw this Groupon business and said, "We got to do this." And I said, "Oh, it looks terrible." And he goes, "The margins are 50%. I said, "It looks great. Let's do it." So we quickly pivoted to this Groupon thing, but so did like 80 other people in Australia. So like Channel 9 had one that we actually ended up buying, and News Corp had one, and Groupon obviously started, and Catch had one. So early people had one. We're not the only ones left in that sort of business. But then we pivoted pretty quickly to travel because we realised, just for a number of reasons, experiences is really hard. It's a really small average order value. So you're selling like a $50 thing, but the cost to acquire a customer is about the same, whether it's a experience or selling a travel package. So travel packages cost a lot more. They can average 2,000. So you got what's called much better unit economics in that business. So, and plus you got much better customer satisfaction, because the problem with experiences, some experience vendors are amazing and some were terrible. And the problem is if you sell a terrible one, the customer gets really unhappy and blames you, understandably, and they don't buy from you again. So you have to refund them and you lose the customer. So it's just not a great business. But the beauty of travel is a much better ticket size, but also hotels just know how to treat customers. They're in the hospitality business. Like, you do have some bad experiences, but it's the exception, not the rule. So like the 5% of times that something goes wrong with Luxury Escapes, we can usually sort it out pretty quickly and we don't lose the customer. Whereas if something goes wrong every second time, that's like quite bad.
That's a systemic issue. There's something.
Yeah, and that's why all those businesses don't exist, pretty much.
Gotcha.
Like Groupon notionally exists, but it's like it was worth 26 billion. Now it's worth a few hundred million.
Right.
So, and it's global. Whereas there's a lot of travel businesses that are around that are doing really well. So we kind of fell into this travel thing at Luxury Escapes from the experiences thing. So didn't really know, but we'd done now sort of 2 apprenticeships. I had the apartment apprenticeship, and then we had our deals.com.au apprenticeship. So just learning lots of stuff. Like, it was like lots of error and a bit of trial and learning how to treat customers and how to treat merchants.
Well, that's a really good lesson. That's a really good lesson for people listening, because a lot of people see a success like yours with Luxury Escapes and go, what's going to be my Luxury Escapes? But they need to know that you've got to do the work first to figure it out and understand probably what your strengths are. And where luck comes into it, and how to treat the customer and how to make the most out of the customer. It's a big learning process that goes into the success that comes at some point. Yeah,
and we've pivoted like 7 times, I think, if you count. So you can't go from the original backpackers to corporate to My Table to deals to Luxury Escapes, and even within Luxury Escapes, we've pivoted multiple times. So we're just constantly thinking, how do we get the product better, and how do we treat customers better, and how do we keep building better stuff? And we've always been like the challenger. I've only had like sort of 2 jobs in my life. I was the most junior person in a law firm, and I worked at supermarkets and all that kind of stuff, but the most junior person to owning business. I had no other. And so even though we own the business and we've got like 600 or whatever staff, we always consider ourselves a bit like that sort of first year person, because we never had anything else. I've never worked for anyone other than like obviously our board, shareholders, whatever. But I've never had like a boss in that sense since I was a lawyer 20-something years ago. So we kind of consider ourselves very fallible, and always, how do we get, like, we're paranoid optimists. We want the best for the business. We think we're going to do well, but we're very worried about what can go wrong. Paranoid optimists.
That's a great description. Yeah. What was the original elevator pitch for Luxury Escapes?
Well, there wasn't really one, because we never raised capital for a start. So we did in 2022, but because we never raised capital, we never really had a pitch. Like essentially, we started doing these local experiences selling, a bit like you think of Red Balloon or business like that. So selling experiences, but usually for a discount. And then hotels and B&Bs came to us to, can you put us on there? And we did, and it sold pretty well. We thought, why don't we do more of this? And we had a guy called Mark who went to uni with, who was really good at negotiating and selling, and he would go and speak to hotels and do multi-million-dollar deals, and was pretty much one of a kind, and built that function for us. Now we've got sort of 60 people doing that, but he was the sort of the first. And we kind of just fumbled our way through and realised probably, so now I'm sure when you speak to founders and entrepreneurs, they generally set out to solve a problem. Like, here's a problem, let's solve it. Let's solve self-driving cars. Let's solve building an LLM, whatever it is. Whereas we didn't do that. We had this original, we copied this business in the States that looked pretty good. And then we thought, actually, this is better. Let's do that. And then we just got better at that. And not having a clue about travel. So we never started a 5-star hotel before we started the business, which is called Luxury Escapes. But we just, as a result, we didn't have so the travel industry is quite set in its ways. I'm saying it's backwards, but it's a bit traditional, the way sort of the travel industry was structured. And then Flight Centre came in sort of the 80s and very much disrupted it. But then Flight Centre's been around now for 30 years, and Screw's done an unbelievable job. But like, nothing had really changed. And we could come in with a completely fresh slate, not knowing how travel industry worked, and just did it our way. So as a result, pretty much everyone hated us in the travel industry because we were kind of disrupting. And now we sell now we're sort of friends with the trade, and we sell, like, our fastest growing channel of the business is what we call Agent Hub, which is us selling Luxury Escapes to travel agents. So if you've got a travel agent you love and have gone to for 20 years, they can sell your Luxury Escapes and get paid a commission for it, which is a great part of the business for us, because we wouldn't get those customers otherwise, because you go to your travel agent, you trust them, they're not going to sell your Luxury Escape because they're not getting paid for it. They're going to sell you something they're getting paid for. So we're now great friends with the trade, but we weren't for a long time. We didn't care. They hated us. It was wasn't mutual. We liked the trade agents hated us. But yeah, so we just fumbled our way through for probably the first 10 years maybe.
Wow. What year did you start it?
So Luxury Escapes as a brand was 2013. We were doing travel stuff earlier. So we started travel when we started deals.com.au, but we spun off. So we bought a business from Nine called Kudo and Getaway Lounge. I'm not sure you remember the Getaway Lounge business that was obviously spun out of Getaway, which still goes on. And we work with Katrina and Lavinia and those guys, and they were our ambassador for a while. And then we stopped working with Getaway Lounge just because, for whatever reason, I can't actually remember why. But we had spun off Luxury Escapes. So Getaway Lounge became Luxury Escapes, essentially. So, and the Kudo business we bought from Nine still exists. So Mike Sneesby was running it, who you obviously know.
Was my boss.
So so I took over.
G'day, Mike. I'm sure he's listening.
So in Dubai somewhere. So Mike was running Kudo and we did a handover. So Mike was great when he handed over. So he was literally running that business. But he went on to Stan, obviously. But yeah, so we bought that and that doubled our size, but it gave us that travel sort of bit of a travel audience from the Getaway Lounge business. And David Gingell, who was running Nine at the time, said, "Oh, you can't keep that name." We said, "That's fine, we don't want the name." And we were going to start Luxury Escapes anyway. And the name Luxury Escapes is really driven not for consumers, because if anything, it's a bit of a two-edged sword for consumers, because some consumers go, "Oh, I don't buy luxury, you're too good for me." But in fact, we actually can sell $100 night places, and a lot of our my favourite stories is someone who tells us I'd never travelled overseas before because of Luxury Escapes. I went to Bali and had the most amazing trip of my life. So it's definitely not just a top 1% thing. We're much more of I wouldn't say a mass market brand, but it's certainly an achievable brand.
Well, it makes luxury accessible.
Absolutely.
For a lot of people.
Yeah. And even if you're very wealthy, everyone wants to save money. And if you're kind of middle class or whatever, you can get a much better trip. So you stay at a really nice 4-star place with all-inclusive rather than staying at a self-service.
So I went to Fiji earlier this year with my family, and I reckon just about every family I met around the pool was there on a Luxury Escapes package, and we were the only idiots who weren't getting free meals.
You should have been.
I know. Yeah. So I really stuffed that up. But there's a membership model to this as well, right? How significant is that to the business? We've got
kind of multiple. So notionally, everybody's a member, but that's kind of, you just sign up, it's free. And now I've got two other things. We've got a Qantas Frequent Flyer style loyalty program called Society, which gets you points and you can get status credits and get upgrades, all that kind of stuff, which is pretty cool. So we've got almost 1 million people on that, and it's been about 6 months. So.
And how many members in total?
That is a great question, because we've got a few different ways to categorise them. I think we've had 8 million people sign up throughout.
And where's your biggest customer base now?
Certainly Australia is still our biggest customer base. So Australia's about 80% of our business. So Australians going offshore. We've got a really fast growing UK business. So Pom's going places, which works out because they often go to the same places Australians go to, so we can get the same deal. Not so much Fiji, but Bali, Dubai, Maldives, which we're really strong in. You'll see a lot of our English customers go. We've got a business in the US, in New Zealand. New Zealand's a really big business. Singapore's going really well. And Germany's a really interesting one, which is the world's second biggest travel market. But obviously we don't have a German language site yet, so that's on the roadmap. But that's a really interesting market as well. But Australians outbound. So Australians to Bali / Queensland / Fiji is very much out. So if you go to Bali, like most people most Australian leisure travellers would probably go through us, certainly the big hotels, because it's just incredible value. And like you said, you can go to Grand Hyatt Bali and pay the same price to get the room, or you can go with us and get all-inclusive. So it's quite a big difference. So
in scaling the business since its inception, what do you think has been the most significant stepping stone for you?
Yeah, it's really weird. We've been a business of, and I think there's a lot of businesses, but incremental steps. Like there's been nothing, like the Kudo purchase was pretty significant, but there's been nothing that's game changed us. There's been lots and lots of, we're trying and stuffing lots of things up and learning from it and rectifying. In 2020, so COVID happened obviously, but we also changed, we didn't change, we added a new part of the business we call Marketplace. So instead of so our legacy business was these amazing deals to Bali, Queensland, Thailand, wherever. You might go 8 nights, $2,000, all inclusive, whatever, instead of $4,000. People love that business, but it's what's called a limited TAM, so total addressable market. Problem with that business, it's a great business, is you eventually cap out. So you run out of, we sell out of a lot of our stuff now, so it can sell out pretty quick. So the problem with that is you want to keep growing, and if you're selling out, you can't grow. So you can run more deals, but again, you sort of cap. There's only so many Grand Hyatt Balis and so many Marriott Momi Bays. So you sort of get capped out at on inventory. And yeah, we are still definitely growing that business and you're finding new destinations and all that stuff. But the beauty of Marketplace is, so if you'd done a search on our website in 2019 and say you wanted to go to London and you typed in London, you probably wouldn't have seen any results in a search box. Now you'll see 70 or 80 results. So it's not Booking.com. We don't want to be Booking.com because Booking.com has 1,000 results. We curate every result. So you're getting, and often they're having like bonus inclusions, even if it's sort of always on. So we want to be a much more curated, great value, Booking.com, and you can speak to somebody with 24/7 customer service. So we're somewhere between your old school travel agent and your Expedia booking. So we're sort of in the middle, and we want to provide, like Booking's a $200 billion business, amazing business, but we think we do some stuff that they don't really well, and there's obviously a lot of stuff that's really good, but we think we provide a great service that they can't provide because they just can't do it. It's not part of their model.
How many holidays are you booking a year?
We've got about 1 million people going on trips a year.
Wow.
And it's growing, I think we're growing about 30 to 35% this year. So it's decent. That's at top line. Our profit's growing faster, but we're intentionally, we're not bootstrapped. We did the capital raise post-COVID just because like balance sheet needed some help, and we did what's called secondary, so some cash back to some shareholders, and one of our shareholders sold down completely then. But we even though we raised capital, it wasn't a growth round. It was called just a balance sheet round. So we always treat the business very much like a family business. We treat a business that we don't try and grow too fast. We try and grow sort of comfortably. So we could grow a lot faster if we're willing to lose money, but we want to try and grow sustainably and create, at the same time, we continually improve the customer experience.
So when the pandemic hit, I wanted to ask you about this. You had actually stepped away in 2019 as the CEO, and then you came back to the company when the pandemic struck. How on earth did you survive the pandemic as a travel business?
Yeah, so we were pretty lucky in some ways. So I'd just gone being a normal director for a year or so. We were looking at selling the business actually, or selling some of the business to like a private equity or strategic or something like that. And we were literally halfway through the trade sale process, and thankfully that stopped. That was a real blessing. But and like this is all public. Like Qantas were looking, and a bunch of big, and they ended up buying another business called Entrepreneurial. But we probably would have sold the business but for COVID. So thank God in a way that happened. Obviously, COVID was terrible for a number of reasons, like obviously people dying for one, but it was also pretty impactful for a lot of business. Live events, obviously travel was one.
It's very impactful here in Melbourne.
In Melbourne, more than anywhere. But we were lucky in a couple of ways. So obviously our revenue slowed down a lot, but because we could sell Australia we have a big Australia to Australia business and a decent US business, and US to Maldives was a big route for us. So a lot of Americans were going to the Maldives, and I think we were the number one US to Maldives supplier during COVID somehow. So we had that business, and we had the Australia to like Melbourne going to Queensland, or Queensland going to Queensland, or whatever it was. That obviously became problematic whenever they shut a border, but when they weren't shutting borders, that was good. So our revenue dropped, but not completely. It sort of dropped 50%, maybe 60%. So that wasn't great, but it wasn't catastrophic. And the second thing we had was, because we sell unique packages, people were very understanding and saying, okay, we'll keep our package on foot, and when the pandemic ends, and everybody thought it would end sooner than it did, when COVID ended, we'll just go take that trip because I don't want to lose it. As opposed to if you had like an air ticket, which is just a commodity, you just cancel whatever. So because of those, like people didn't really ask. Like some people wanted refunds. They would, if you needed money, and we probably 5% of people wanted a refund, and we did that, but 95% of our customers are amazing and trusted us, and if it wasn't for the trust of our customers, we might have had to do a discounted capital raise during COVID. As it happened, we did a capital raise post-COVID for a better valuation, so it kind of worked out really well, but it also allowed us to pivot the business, and we were actually pretty aggressive with hiring. So even the amazing travel businesses, the Airbnbs, the bookings, the flight centres fired a lot of people. The Flighties went from 750 to 250 stores or whatever it was. And we increased our team over COVID. I think we're probably the only travel business in the world that grew our team. And that gave us a really great running start coming out. So I was pretty confident that it would end at some point. The timing was always sort of a little bit uncertain, but you could tell from vaccination rates when it was sort of like we probably thought it happened a few months after it happened, but like we were directionally right. So it allowed us to come out really hard and really fast, whereas everybody else was sort of trying to find staff. We had a fully loaded team, and then we doubled again in size, probably a bit too much, but yeah. So we were as bad as the pandemic was for the travel sector, it was actually certainly a benefit for us. We're like 3x the size now in terms of revenue, and more than that in terms of profit and double the size. And our technology team went from 30 to 140. So we've become a much more tech-focused business than just a travel business, which was we were pre-COVID. So we were like, again, it's just another, if you look at our story, it's a series of just incredible luck, but like compounding on luck. So that was just another instance of that. So we're just really lucky and right place, right time. And we were able to get through it and came out a much better business.
Were there benefits for you in stepping away from the business for a couple of years? Did you bring a fresh take on how to run it?
Yeah, it was actually massively helpful. So I don't think any founder wants to step away. And in the end, we sort of did it. It was all happily agreed, but in the end of it. But you always think, oh, should I, should not be? It turned out to be for a start, I doubt I'll be doing it. This is sort of 15 years since I started the business and 20 years we started out there. There aren't that many CEOs who run the same business for 15 years. There's actually very few. And there's a reason for that, because they start doing a bad job for a start and you get hubris and narcissistic and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure I was guilty of that in some way. But being able to step back and Cam, who came in, did a decent job. He did a lot of things better than me. And there's some things that I was doing wrong that he just sort of didn't change. That I then realised pretty quickly we should be changing. So the ability to sort of step back and look in and say, oh, actually, this was dumb, that was dumb, that was dumb. And I think the big one is probably from a really understanding the value of getting really good people in. And we sort of the focus after I came back was how do we build the best possible team we can. I think we've got, in terms of teams, and probably everybody says this, but I think our tech team is almost as good as any in Australia. It's up there with the Canvas, and there's really good teams. And our commercial team's incredible. We have the best deals on earth. That's anybody can compare it. So I think we've got our customer service teams. So I think we'll be able to build an unbelievable team sort of from top down. And we've got a super entrepreneurial team and a really consistent management team. So that, I think that stepping out just sort of, when you bootstrap a business, you just don't, because you don't have any money at the beginning, you skimp on everything. And one thing you skimp on is just paying for staff. So you may by accident, and we by accident got some amazing staff, but it wasn't intentional. And now we can set out, how do we go and get the most amazing people in every role and have the advantage of being a business that sells luxury travel. So people kind of want to work for you because we're selling we're selling happiness essentially. So a bit like the media business, people want to work in media because they love the business. It's a bit like travel. So we've got a lot of good fortune in that. We're able to build a team that I think is the best going around. And our business is really an IP, media and IP driven business. And we are essentially, in many ways, we do have a media business, but even our core business is a media business. So we've got a TV show and a magazine, all that kind of stuff. So that's classic media. But now so does Amazon, so does most online businesses. But if you look at our core business, we're effectively a media business for hotels, just a really niche media business. So talent is so important. If you don't have the right talent, from negotiating the deals to helping our customers to doing our artwork to doing our content to doing our technology to doing our finance to whatever we're doing, if we don't have a great team, we'll just lose. So we're competing against Booking, who are incredible operators, and we want to be top 5 travel business in the world. We think we're now top 3 in Australia. And if you asked me sort of 5 years ago, there's no way we'd ever be that. But we partly because of sort of Steve Bradbury and partly because we've done a good job. But yeah, it's on the back of having a much better team than we ever had. And I do some new starter lunches, and every time I do new starter lunches, it gets better. The caliber of people that we're able to attract gets better, and it's a real blessing to have people trust us that we can do a good job for them as well.
So the beginning of your career in business was obviously fairly chaotic, I think it's fair to say. How would you say your leadership style has changed?
It's so hard to diagnose yourself.
Yeah, it is.
When you start any startup, there's a few really important sort of things you need to be able to do. You need to be able to sell. If you can't sell, and I was a lawyer, but a good lawyer needs to be able to sell as well. I was never a good lawyer, but good lawyers good partners need to be able to bring in business. And a startup founder, if you can't sell, then you've got no business because you've got no revenue. And if you can't sell to investors, you don't get people to back you. So, and we don't have investors, but so we have to be able to sell. So we have to be able to sell to hotels or whoever we're selling. I need to be able to go into a restaurant and sell them deals.com.au. That's what we did. So there's that. And you need to be able to do what we call product, which in tech is building the website, whatever, that sort of product. You should be able to do until you can hire product. Now we've got an amazing team of a dozen product managers. But before that, that was me and Josh and Jez were the product managers. And probably the third thing is you've got to sort of create the core, the nucleus of a team. And then as the business matures, your skill set has to change a bit. So you get salespeople to do the sales and you get product people to do the product, but I think your skill set becomes how do you become a really good storyteller? And that's storytelling to investors. And that's not making stuff up. It's telling the story and bringing forward the future to raise capital, as Scott Galloway says. But probably the most important thing is you got to attract and retain an incredible team, because ultimately a founder, entrepreneur can't do it themselves. They've got to stand on the shoulders of greatness. And my job as a CEO now is to really steal people's credit. So everybody does the hard work and I come sort of flaunting along at the end and take the credit for it. But certainly externally, internally, everybody knows it wasn't me. But so yeah, it's being able to change that skill set from being that sort of, and I'm still pretty hands-on, but that's sort of a founder thing, but being not the person doing all the selling. And I used to write the content and answer the phones when I had to come out customer service. And yeah, I'll do that occasionally if people find my emails that hard to find. And I'll tend to, most cases, reply, especially if we have stuff something up. But like, you have really good people to do that stuff. So it's about how do you make sure that the structure's there, that really good people want to come and work with you and don't leave. And that's...
What is your staff retention like?
Probably about 90%, which is I don't think you actually want any higher, because you sort of need a little bit of turnover.
Fresh blood, yeah.
A bit of fresh blood. But I think what we look at more is regretted versus non-regretted. Like, we have non-regretted, which is as in you didn't mind if the person left or you fired them essentially. If that happens, it means you've had a problem at the hiring stage, or it's just been unfortunate, it hasn't worked or whatever. But it's the regretted stuff that you don't want. And one thing we're actually really great at is getting people back who leave. Who it's regretted. So there's people who just leave for they get offered lots of money, or there's like lots of innocent reasons. They haven't gone to a competitor, they've left on good terms. We've got dozens of people back who left on good terms and come back on even better terms and remain with us and become incredible contributors to the team. My CTO, Shai, who's one of our sort of biggest stars in the business, left to go to Amazon and came back even better. So there can be some positive to that, actually, or you might have someone who goes and starts their own business or whatnot. So there's always going to be some attrition, but we want to try and make sure we keep as many good people as we can.
And what are you looking for in an employee? If someone's listening here today going, gee, I'd love to work for Luxury Escapes. That sounds pretty bougie. What do they need to bring to the table?
That word. We love certainly initiative, getting stuff done. We're very much a get you done. Can I say that word on this show? I don't know. Okay. We're very much a get you done mentality. We want, and not everybody's going to be entrepreneurial, and we know that. But if you can be entrepreneurial, if you started a business, and even if it's failed, that's a great background to have, because you show they got that risk-hungry, risk-seeking mentality. We obviously want people who are really smart, but you don't have to have gone to uni and done whatever, mechanical engineering. You just need to be sort of smart and work stuff out. A really great problem solver, lots of initiative, and fit into we're a pretty fun culture. We're an in-office culture. We want people who are, and not everybody's going to be extroverted, but a lot of our roles, if you're on the phone selling, you need to be extroverted. If you're negotiating with hotels, you need to be extroverted. Obviously, you've got other parts of the business that are less so, but it is a culture that you need to be really sort of pushy, engaged.
Have a bit of get up and go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And again, very much like the media business. Like, we're not a place for shrinking violets.
Yeah.
It's but like we think we want to be a meritocracy. We want, if people are really good, we love internal promotions. We love seeing someone, and we've got a bunch of people who have gone from started sort of on the phones. I'm not saying that's the most junior role, but starting on the phones, went to another role, went to a market manager role, went to a negotiator role, and have sort of worked their way up to senior management roles from like starting at sort of step one, which we love doing. So. And we love people who might start in tech and go to commercial or vice versa. So we want to try and be as flexible as possible with the team.
So you say you have an in-office culture. I've listening to your podcast and reading some of your some articles about you online. You're clearly not into work from home. Why are you so against work from home?
So I say there's a caveat, because there's some people who sort of need to work from home. That's kind of mums with kids or dads with kids or parents who need to be cared for. So there's cohorts of people, or if you've got special needs, there's a small cohort of people. Yeah. So we've always embraced, and pre-COVID, we were far more flexible than pretty much any business pre-COVID. And partly because we're just so contrarian that like whatever other people do, we like to do the opposite, or I like to do the opposite. But like we've always been, obviously everybody pre-COVID was work from office, but certainly I've always loved that work from office. This is Scott Galloway, who's a great podcaster. He says the most important characteristic for someone who stays at their job is having a friend at work. Another one is having a great manager, but having a friend at work. You should think about yourself, it makes sense because there's a reason to go in. And pretty hard to have a friend at work if you're working from home by yourself, isolated. So yeah, I've got a bit of bias because I hate working from home, and my wife hates it when I'm at home. She wants me out ASAP. So there's a bit of bias there, but I think the value of collaboration, and just sure, like some people are actually more efficient from home. So it's not a pure question of efficiency. There are some people who work from home for our business for really good reason, and they're super efficient. They're great workers, and it's not as if they're slacking off. They're really impressive. But in terms of creating a great environment where people want to come to work and have a great time, we do lunches every day, and it's a great form of collaboration and speaking to people and all that stuff. like coming into an office that's sort of called 80% plus full, and you hear that buzz, probably a bit of a newsroom buzz. We have that most days. Like some days you just don't have the buzz, but almost every day you have that. And that just coming and hearing that buzz, and it's people sort of a hum of people working collaboratively, you can't get that at home. And when we run our numbers, we have double the attrition rate if you work from not at home. So if you're working from home. So when we were sort of coming out of COVID and it was more hybrid, if you came to the office, you had a much less chance of leaving the business. And it kind of makes sense. If you're a technologist and just working on a code base, someone offers you, Atlassian offers you 100 grand more and you can work from home, well, of course you're going to go there for 100 grand more. Why wouldn't you? But if you're coming to work and you've got friends here and you're having lunch every day and it's good fun and you're building something that's...
You're more invested.
Yeah, you're more invested. So we've found it's like economically makes more sense because people are less likely to leave. And think if you're and the most common people who want to work from the office are younger people. There's this great sort of myth that young people want to work from home and are slacking off watching Netflix. That's not true at all. It's really the sort of 40 plus people who have sort of reached the pinnacle of their career. They're kind of independent contractor almost type people. They want to work from home, but it's all good and well for sort of a 45-year-old who's reached their peak to work from home. But what about the poor 21-year-old who can't learn because the person who's teaching them is working home every day? So it's certainly not great for pipeline as well and talent through the business. So I think it's obviously bad for the business, but I think it's also terrible for the employee who loses exposure to their boss. So less likely, rightly or wrongly, you're much less likely to get promoted if you're not in front of your boss. And you say it's unfair and all that kind of stuff, but it's a fact of life.
It makes you front of mind, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's that, and you just can't learn. So you can't learn through osmosis. So I don't think, and then there's a whole mental health issue with being myself at home all day. So I don't think there's any great. I think it's just a lose-lose for everyone.
Well, that's another. If we're speaking to Scott Galloway, that's another one of his missions at the moment is getting younger men, in particular, to be more social, to get to the pub, to hang out with people, to engage socially, to relieve some of this isolation that is being experienced.
And Scott's done some amazing work with young men and young boys and the troubles they face. I'm not a young boy anymore, but it's. And if you look at how many 30% of relationships happen at work, start at work, and this isn't Alyssa, this is genuine great relationship. So
I met my husband.
Absolutely, yeah, the 9 royalty, the two of you. So
that's an overreach.
We've had a bunch of. We had a great couple, Tom and Chrissy, have been with us for 10 years, and they had their second baby last week, and it's a Luxury Escapes kid, the 2 Luxury Escapes kids. So we love when that happens. So it's. Yeah, I can't see any upside. Giving flexibility, you can still give lots of flexibility while working from an office. There's no reason why you can't. Some people maybe every day of the week you need to work from home for whatever reason, for a part, and then do it. But as long as your general workplace is with other people, that's what we sort of want. So, we've become a much better business since we've done this, and we continue to improve. And my mind's become even more. And you got the other overlay that in this world of AI, where we've seen Amazon announce a month ago or a few weeks ago that 30,000 jobs being cut, and GM and all these businesses cutting jobs. So it's some unions and whoever are fighting yesterday's war. The problem is if you can hire a job through an LLM or in Bangalore or in Ukraine, well, I think we enter a period where capital is about to have a big advantage over labour. So if labour is thinking, well, I can work from home and I can try and enforce that power I had during COVID, I think that's a pretty bad negotiating mistake. I think you want to get in the office and get in front of your boss and really boost your career now. I think it's the worst possible time to be working from home for young people or anybody really.
That's really interesting. How is AI transforming your business at the moment?
Well, we're using it in a few different ways. I think there's the big overhang with travel is, will people use agentic LLMs to book their own travel? My gut feeling is most people probably won't. There'll be a small percentage of people who will just say, fine, book me a trip, whatever. And then maybe the booking made directly with the hotel or whatnot, which is not good for any online travel agent, including us. I think overall, and this is my gut feel, is people like to shop by comparison. And I'm not sure using an agent and a LLM's the way to maximise that. We are using AI in a number of ways. So we've been personalising our comms for 5 years. That's what we used to call machine learning. Now we call it AI. So if you click on Luxury Escapes, if you're a Luxury Escapes member, we'll send you an email, not every day, but it all depends on how good a member you are. If you tell us you want it once a week, we'll send you once a week. If you want every day, we'll send you every day. But if you go to the website and look at some stuff and type in, I've got 2 adults, 2 kids, we'll use the data you've told us to create better communications to you. So it'll be a more appropriate email. So we're not going to send you, if you've got 2 kids, we're not going to send you an adults only deal in the Caribbean because you're not going to want it. We're going to send you 2 Fiji and Bali stuff and Queensland stuff that's relevant for you. So we're doing that for like 5 or 6 years. We're getting better and better at sort of communicating less but better. So people would rather have, I'm sure, I don't want to see a luxury escapes thing every 5 minutes. I want to see one really good thing a week maybe, or one, if some people like seeing every day. But we want to try and match what the customer wants and how frequently we tell them. That's one thing we've been doing for ages. Then the other thing we're doing is that sort of our chat bot. So we have a big customer service team, and you can call us 24/7, 365 days a year. But some people just want to do it themselves. Like I hate actually speaking to people. I want to do it myself. So I'm building out a lot of chatbot functionality, so you can sort of speak to a chatbot which is LLM powered to effectively get a refund or get a credit or change a transfer. We're gradually doing more and more stuff. And we're doing some voice testing with the lorikeet guys, which is really interesting. So you can sounds like you're speaking to a real person, but it's actually not a real person, but it's actually going pretty well. Not quite there, but we're getting there. And probably the most cool thing we're doing is using effectively an LLM-driven trip planning tool. So if they had 100,000 people build a trip using this, so you're coming to Melbourne for a week, you can say, what should I do in Melbourne I got 2 adults, 2 kids, I'm a vegetarian, I'm pretty active, and we'll create a sort of itinerary for you. And you can do that on GPT as well, or Claude or whatever. But the beauty of what we've built is effectively a wrapper. So it just stays in your app. You can book your experiences, you can book your flights, book your lounge, all that kind of stuff. So it does give you a lot more flexibility than a ChatGPT does. Because ChatGPT, you do the search and you have this stuff come up.
And then you have to go and book it.
A, you have to book it, and B, it goes away. Like it's sort of, unless you can sort of PDF it, it sort of vanishes next time you go back to GPT. Whereas ours sort of saves, and you can book it. And it could be just, I want to go to the botanical gardens. So it's not something you book, it's something you put in the schedule, and it's something for free you can do. Or it could be, I'm going to go ice skating at the O'Brien Arena, and you can book that, or whatever it is. So I think we're not quite there yet. The next version we release in a couple of months will have the ability to sort of, it will plan an itinerary for you, and then you can basically chat with it every day and say, actually, I don't want to go ice skating, I want to go to the food market. I want to go to South Melbourne Market, and type that in and it'll change it for you. So effectively having almost like a person/travel agent booking a trip and having it in your pocket the whole time. So then it'll become a sharing tool eventually, so you can share it with your friends and family. If I'm going to Europe, my mum's asking what am I doing every day, instead of telling you, I just say, here, I'll share my trip plan with you, and she can dynamically see what you're doing. So I think like the product we've got is okay, but I think it'll be really good in sort of 6 to 12 months. So sort of, and then we're using obviously operationally to just make our team more efficient. So between tech team and operational team. So there's lots of ways we're using it. None of it in itself is game changing. It's just all sort of, again, incremental improvements on a call.
Are you scared of AI the way some people are scared of it? Are you worried about how fundamentally it's going to shift things?
Elon Musk's a robot army type thing, or there's a bit of unknown unknowns there, or known unknowns maybe. I tend to not worry about stuff. Like it's going to happen, and we'll deal with it when it happens. There is a non-zero chance that every online travel business gets wiped out because people just use agents to book everything for them. Although I think that's pretty unlikely. And that's another reason why we're leaning into loyalty really hard. So we've got our program called Society, where you get points and you can get credits and all that kind of stuff. We've also got one called Lux Plus, which is a paid tier. So that's approaching 100,000 members, and it's $250 a year, and you get great discounts and early access and priority support and some really good benefits. And that's been a really powerful driver of loyalty and engagement. So hopefully between our 2 loyalty programs, our customers are getting such great value from us that they can't. Why do you go back to Qantas? Because you want to use that lounge and all that kind of stuff. So we're sort of building a similar type ecosystem where if you come back to us, and so rather than us advertising on Google and Meta and constantly having to re-advertise to get the same customer, we can give you a discount through, which is what essentially loyalty is. It's a form of direct marketing. So instead of paying Google half the margin I'm making, I'd rather give you a discount, and you can get free lounge, free chauffeur transfer to the airport, a free upgrade, or whatever it is. So if you're a platinum member of ours, you get free, like unlimited lounge access and 4 chauffeur transfers a year if you're traveling with us. So, and most airlines don't do that anymore. So I used to get the chauffeur transfer with business class. They kind of cut it. I think it's just Emirates does it. Yeah. Maybe Emirates, but no one else. But Singapore don't do it. Qantas don't do it. But we do it. So that's a pretty nice touch, because otherwise you have to get an Uber and whatever. And this is like a really fancy car. And you can also do one at where you land, so you can sort of choose. So if you're at Bali, you can get a transfer at Bali. So we've tried to, in our loyalty, we've tried to build, so if you think of all the great loyalty programs in Australia, be it Amex, be it Qantas, whatever it is, they're amazing, but they've got such great market dominance that they can actually become less generous because everybody uses them. Whereas
they are becoming less generous.
They are, exactly. And our goal is, how do we get people to use our scheme? So we're trying to be more and more generous. So our instruction and what our team's trying to do is, how do we make this program better and better every week? Like, how do we add more stuff in it rather than take stuff away? And how do we become more generous? So, and that's because we're a challenger brand. We're challenging Qantas, we're challenging Velocity, we're challenging Booking.com. And I think like we're good at UX and we understand customers, but we just want to try and be more and more generous with our customers and create a loyalty program that people just love. And like our engagement, once people join up to our loyalty, we see a 50% improvement in engagement. So they're sort of way more likely to buy something, to look at the site, to click on an email, because we're rewarding them for doing stuff. And we're constantly, how do we gamify our site more? If you download a widget, like an app widget, we want to give you bonus points. How do we do like lots of stuff that obviously leads to more sales, but leads to happier and more engaged and more fun customers?
Tell me about the Contrarians podcast. Was that for you a business decision or a creative outlet or a bit of both?
It wasn't really businessy. It's a business show, but I had a podcast originally with a different distributor. We interviewed founders, basically. So like interviewed 30 or 40 great Australian founders, and it was just a lot of work, as you know. I don't know, that was just me doing it myself pretty much. And we had like producers who did the content, but I would do all the research and all that kind of stuff. And obviously I got a day job, so it's just a bit hard to get it all done. And then I actually interviewed my co-host, a guy called Idea Schiffman, who's executive chairman of a business called Catapult Sport, which is probably Australia's coolest technology business. It does all the sports tracking for every NBA, NFL, Premier League, AFL team, all the Grand Prix stuff. So it's ironic that Idea doesn't love going to all these sports, but he can go to any sport he wants to in the world anywhere. So
can you get some tickets?
I should ask him actually, but he's just an unbelievable talent as well. Just a great, just naturally could be on the radio, no problem. And I did an episode with him where I interviewed him. It was a great app, and then we did a few other just random chatting, a bit like this chatting episodes. And I said to him, "Why don't we just do a pod where we're just talking about businessy stuff?" And he was like, and eventually I just said, okay. Eventually, after like 6 months, he said, "No, we'll do it." And it's just like the chemistry really worked, and it's just good fun. And we're able to chat, like we challenge each other and argue and often agree, but often don't agree. And it's just good fun. And we've got like our listeners, not the scale of yours, obviously, but it's a bit more niche in that. Like I actually thought that lots of really successful business people listen and fund managers and all that. But like what I love hearing is when people say, "Oh, my 8-year-old son listens and he loves like hearing what you guys say."
It's really, really connected audience and really personal engagement, I find, which is what I love about it. Is you get really personal feedback from people listening.
Oh, it's the best. As Scott says, like he knows what the sort of the person who's like someone calls him over, someone shouts out to him, he thinks, "Oh, they saw me on TV." If someone has a quiet conversation, they read one of his articles, and if someone speaks like they're an old friend, they say, "Oh, he listens to the podcast." And it's amazing how often people come up. I'm sure you hear the same, where they know what you've done, like they know like what you've been doing, and they speak like you're a friend. And like even like when we were at the races last week or a couple of weeks ago, and people I've never met go, "Oh, I love the pod." And these people like senior Australian business people, which I think is like crazy, but as if they know you, which is I actually really like it.
It's cool. It's really cool. It's really cool to connect and to feel like you're adding value. You know, if someone's listening to an episode and they feel like they've taken something positive away from it, then big tick. And I know they're going to take a lot away from this. We're almost out of time, but I want to ask you about one of the episodes of the Contrarians where you spoke about the 5% home deposit for first home buyers, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of listeners who will be assessing whether or not this is for them. And we've got new data out that shows that first home buyers are indeed piling in to that scheme at the moment. You say to be cautious around that perhaps that's going to cause more harm to young people and help wealthy older people. Why do you say that?
I've been saying this for literally like 17 years now, and I've been wrong for 17 years. So I'm cautious to take my own advice, but like the Australian housing market is like the second most expensive in the world or something. And the only sort of more expensive, or maybe the third, the only more expensive ones are like tax havens. And the reason why like a Hong Kong and a Monaco are expensive is because you pay less tax and that money just gets capitalised in the value of land. So take out those tax haven places. And if you look at, and the best way to, and people go, "Oh, property always goes up, so you got to get on the ladder and it always goes up." Well, if you look at Japanese property in 1989, it's still a fraction of what it was. So that's never hit that peak. But the problem we have now is you go back to like, I guess when I was sort of at uni or coming out of uni in like the early 2000s, and I think it's like the average house, the median house was 4 years median salary, and now it's like 11 years in Sydney.
No,
so that's or 15 or whatever, which is it's just like beggars belief this can continue forever. Eventually, so the reason why any asset bubble was caused is by excess debt. So the prices don't get better any other way. As if the bank lend gives you $200,000, you'll spend the $200,000 on a house. That's what everybody does because you want that house. You've got that emotional attachment. Everybody has to own a house in Australia. And there's this great folly that if you own a house, you failed, which is just the worst thing in the world. And it isn't like that in other countries. For some reason, it's like that in Australia. And as a result, and we've got now, thankfully, 9 don't own Domain anymore. We had 9 and News Corp owning the 2 major properties. So there was it's in everybody's interest to keep this sort of bubble going. Now, thankfully, Domain's separate and obviously News Corp still owns REA. But you've got this great sort of real estate industrial complex that is, it's a bit like the equity markets that everybody wants everything always go up and it's always good to go up. But if you're a young person, you don't want property prices to go up. You want prices to go down. You want things to be on sale. No one wants to pay full price. So it's just, and this sort of 5% deposit is the latest in a series of boondoggles from federal governments and state governments to push the value of prices up. So all that happens now is so the 5% thing is actually saying is instead of needing a 20% deposit, you need a 5% deposit. The government guarantees the difference. All it does is push pricing up to the limit, which is 1.5 in Sydney and 1.2 in Melbourne or whatever it is. That just gives more money to vendors who are selling the house and less money to buyers who are now saddled with even more debt than they would have had. So this is like the latest in a series of ridiculous housing policies that continue to create this intergenerational theft from young to old. And you've got principal capital gains residence exemption. So if I buy a house for $100,000 and sell it for $50 million, I'm not paying any tax on that. Like no other asset you own, you pay no tax on. But you pay no tax on principal residence, which again is another theft from young to old. So every single policy that both state and federal governments do is basically aimed at enriching older, richer people. And this is the most outrageous of it. And it's unbelievable. It's even worse posed as some sort of great benefit to young people when it's actually doing the opposite. It's the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing.
It's so interesting because it is giving so many young people hope that they can crack into the market, and that brings such positivity, I think, to the discussion. But you're right, there are really long-term things to think about. And obviously everyone has to consider it for themselves and what they can manage and the rest of it. But there are a lot of factors to consider when you're going down that path. Lastly, what is the future for luxury escapes? What is the plan for world dominance? What will we see in the coming years?
We just want to keep building a better product. We've got lots of stuff that we continue to launch. We want to keep making loyalty better. We just opened up a new store in Bondi. We've got a store in Chadstone in Melbourne. So this is, I think, the #1 travel store in the world by turnover, our Melbourne store. And I think it's the nicest travel store. You get Veuve Clicquot when you go there. We're now giving away, I saw this thing that Hilton's in the US give chocolate cookies.
Oh, yeah.
And I was telling my daughter, who's 9 and a little sort of entrepreneur in training, she goes, you should give cookies. So now we give cookies at the store. We did like a cookie taste test and worked out the best one. So we got a couple of stores now.
Was your daughter involved in the cookie taste testing?
She did a subsequent tasting
after
we chose it. She approved. But yeah, so we got a bunch of stuff happening. Like, so we're obviously working really hard on loyalty, hopefully have a credit card in market, which would be the most generous credit card points wise in Australia, we think, hopefully next 6 months. Looking at a charter flight, a weekly charter flight to a really cool destination I can't reveal yet, but is super exciting. We're working on our signature series tours. We work with a bunch of celebrities, so chefs like Shane Delia and Miguel and Gary and Matt from MasterChef who do tours with us, and we do these amazing food tours, and we did an architecture tour to Japan with Anthony Burke, and we got doing the sort of niche, really cool niche stuff. But yeah, so there's lots of cool stuff we're working on. But also we just want to keep delivering better and better product to our customers and hopefully keeping on growing the business. And we want to be one of the biggest travel businesses in the world. We're getting pretty close to, we're not, obviously Flight Centre is a much bigger business from TTV, but they've got a big corporate business. So we're getting close to becoming the biggest leisure sort of outbound business in Australia. So we want to keep growing, but more importantly, rather than being, we want to be just a great customer service business that customers love and that people love, and essentially we're selling happiness. So the more happiness we can sell, the better.
Bottle it up. Yeah. What's your favourite place to travel to?
To ski, probably Whistler, and for sun, probably Maldives.
I bet you're not sleeping on the floor anymore in Whistler.
No, we're not sleeping on the floor anymore. Yeah.
Love it. Adam, thank you for being so generous with your time. I reckon there's a whole lot more than luck involved in where you're at in life, but admire your success and your humility in all of it. So congratulations and thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure.